To briefly introduce myself, so my name is Christophe Choquet. I call myself a health business expert. I studied at University of Leuven and in Siena, and I am specialized in health business strategy and health business innovation. And today what I do mainly is I inspire and advise companies from small to super big, often at a global level, about how to create those health business strategies or even innovate some of the current strategies out there. My expertise is in inspiration in building strategies, but also in building ecosystems. And I'll come to that at the very end of it. What I try to do mainly is I believe that to have successful strategies and definitely innovation strategies, it's good to do it in an ecosystem. And we can build that ecosystem together. And I'll be running it for you to make sure that your innovation strategies are implemented as efficiently and cost effectively as possible. That is, in a nutshell, what I do. But what I really believe in is that health and happiness are the single most important things in our life. That is the core of everything that I do. And so what I do every day is I look at trends in society, I look at trends in technology and business, and look at how that impacts our health and well-being. But I also look at how health and well-being influences certain trends in society or technology and business. And I write about that. There's a newsletter coming out very regularly. And often these newsletters then end up in books. I've written 2 books over the years. One is Healthusiasm. The second one is Trends in the Transformation Economy. Healthusiasm is really about, why are people so occupied with their health? What does this mean for companies like yours? And how can you play into that? We'll talk a lot about that today, but we'll also talk about the second book, which is the Transformation Economy. And that is a new economic reality, in fact, where if you could bring transformations to your customers, that is exactly the value that your customers are searching for. So when I said we will be talking about creating value in the medical device distribution, well, it will be about those transformations. That is what I want to do. But today I'll be talking about halters, I'll be talking about Mercedes-Benz, and I'll be talking about horseback riding in Iceland as well. Those are pretty much the 3 things that I want to, or that you will definitely see passing by. Let's put it that way. So about creating value in the medical device distributions. These 2 elements will be talked about today, and I'll start with this healthusiasm thing, because this healthusiasm thing is a trend that I describe as being the enthusiasm that we all have to be healthy and happy. And so when I stand in front of an audience, and whether it is 20 people like here or 30 people, or whether it's 2,500 people, when I ask the question, who does not want to be healthy and happy, there is nobody who lifts their hand. Maybe there's one fool who wants to attract some attention. That always happens, definitely in large audiences, but mostly it's just for joking around. Most people just really want to be healthy and happy. And that's always been the case. That is, and say nothing new. Even in the old Greek days, people were praying and bringing offers to the gods to actually be in good health. But there's one moment in time that really changed everything. And this is the moment when Jane Fonda was bringing out her workout videos, because the 80s was a very specific time where people started realizing that they can do something about it. It's not just about prayers. It's not just about bringing offers. We don't do that anymore, the offers. So we knew that we need to do something about it. There was a rise in chronic diseases like cardiovascular diseases. Cancer was a word that basically for the first time was mentioned publicly, or was becoming more popular, if I may call it that way, in the 80s. And so this was the first time that people started realizing we can do something about our health. And that is remarkable, because in the decades before, we were still selling cigarettes like this. We could still buy cigarettes in a hospital next to our bed. But after the 80s, that all started declining. People started realizing how bad cigarettes were. They always knew, basically, but people wanted to have that impact on their health. And that is what I call the healthusiasm trend. It really started accelerating in the 80s to become a trend, which is now, to me, predominant, one of the biggest macro trends out there that really you should be taking into account in anything that you are doing. Now, you see that it started in the 80s, but it accelerated even afterwards. And I'll briefly explain to you with 4 evolutions how it comes that healthusiasm has become such an important factor, how it became a macro trend, in fact. And obviously, one of the big evolutions that shaped that was a technological evolution. We've seen a lot of things happening. There's more information available to us, which previously, if we're talking about our health before 2000s, the health information was not available. Now we can go online and look up things ourselves. And 52% of internet users seek these health informations online every year. Over a lifetime, it's almost everyone. But it's also social media. 93% of people who are on social media, they are interacting with social media accounts that are focused on health, wellness, medical. Healthfluencers, medfluencers are the most trusted influencers on social media. Another evolution is, of course, technology in general. There's more wearable health trackers. We have, apps in our phones, and to half of the population are using those every day. And then finally, we have what I call the electrified trend. It is, AI will be Dr. Google on steroids. We have Google already for some information, but AI will amplify that massively, will even allow us to build our own solutions. So there's this technology that allows us to be more occupied with our health, and that actually accelerated this healthusiasm trend over the years, because previously we didn't have those technologies. It empowered us to impact our own health. Now, at the same time, things change in society as well. There's a psychological evolution that we've seen, and that had mainly to do with the fact that our basic and social needs were largely fulfilled. And if you look at the Maslow pyramid, which I briefly summarized here, when people have their social and basic needs fulfilled, they go to the top of that pyramid, which then becomes a new need that people want to see fulfilled, and that are the aspirational needs, or the self-actualization needs. People want to become the best version of themselves if their social and basic needs are largely fulfilled. And you can see that really, really well if you look at retirement. People that retire, like my dad retired 10 years ago, and when he retired, he told me, now it's my time. I will do the things that I want to do. I will, do that trip that I want to do, and I will finally have the time to do that hobby that I always wanted to do. Now, people at that moment, looking at my dad, they said that they want to become the best version of themselves after they've worked their entire life. If you look at youngsters today, they don't wait until retirement to become that best version. They will do that hobby already today. They might be doing that big trip they've always wanted to do in the middle of their careers. People want to become the best version of themselves. They're more aspirational than ever. And so instead of being reactive about our health, we are becoming very proactive. About half of the population say that they do it on a regular basis. When they buy things, it's about how can we proactively impact our health and wellness. And the majority of people say they're doing it more this year than previous year. And this is a number you see every year happening. So this is a trend that people are more and more and more occupied with their health. It's a psychological evolution. And if you see that so many people are occupied with their health, we enter some form of economic evolution, because it becomes interesting for companies. And in the end, marketeers have always helped people to become the person they want to become, they dreamt of becoming. This is what Seth Godin, the marketing guru in the world, told many, many times. And if you have this hierarchy of needs, and if indeed people are more aspirational than ever, well, what you will see then is that consumerism and the way that people will decide what to purchase or not will be based on those self-actualization needs. It was already mentioned by trendwatching.com in 2015, but it's definitely true today. In 2021, Nielsen IQ said that health and wellness is the single most powerful consumer force. This is how important it is. And it makes that bit by bit, every business will become a health business. And you can also see that in any type of studies. If you ask people, what do brands need to have? The majority would say that brands need to take care of people's health and well-being. That's how important it is. And that's no surprise, because if you look at the self-care search terms on Google, it quadrupled between 2007 and 2005 and 2015, to then again double afterwards. Self-care is so important. People want to have an impact on themselves, and you see this in the size of the self-care and wellness economy. It's a $6.3 trillion business. $6.3 trillion business. That is huge. If you don't know how huge it is, this is how big it is. Obviously, this is a joke. If you compare it to other industries, it's one of the biggest industries out there. And so what you see, the bars are the size of each and every industry or market, but the blue part of the bars are the part that is shaped, that is driven by consumers, customers that are interested in health and well-being. So you can see that more and more in every industry, the decision to buy something, to purchase something, is based on health and well-being. And even, I mean, many companies are entering in that space. I mean, this is Priya. It's available in Germany. It's available in the States. It's a telehealth solution. It dispenses medication. But at the same time, you can talk, this is a telehealth solution, you can talk to your physician or your pharmacist. But the real cool thing about it is that this is a new product on the market. It's about a couple of years, but it's brought to the market by Black & Decker. So you can see that more and more companies are moving into that space. I talked about Mercedes-Benz. Well, Mercedes-Benz was one of the first movers into that space as well. They created the fit and health car, which is connected to all your devices, to your agenda, to the traffic on the road. And depending on your current status of health, the car will adapt itself, will change the lighting, the temperature, the music. Maybe you might even get a massage. This was brought on the market in 2017 in the Maybach, the Mercedes Maybach, which is the most extreme, expensive car of Mercedes. But this is one example of how the car industry is moving into that space. And ever since, I have in my latest book a whole chapter on all the different car manufacturers that are focusing on health, because it has become that important. And finally, even in finance, you see more and more companies trying to help their customers with financial well-being. Saying that, you know, stress is very often a big contributor to the stress you have or not. And so what they do is, Credit Karma, that is, they give a lot of information sessions to help people, you know, explain how they need to go about their money so that their stress is relieved. And during those sessions, of course, you can have some massages and maybe some therapy sessions as well. And there's plenty of other examples, you know, ventilation systems, loyalty cards for healthy products. Even Disney is bringing out Zanimations, which help kids to relax and have less triggers than they have when they are gaming. So that is the economic evolution. So there's an economic evolution that makes that people are more occupied with their health. And finally, there's a social evolution. I mean, health used to be something that we don't talk about. Before the 80s, it was something secret, private to you. Today, I'm pretty sure that all of you have chatted over time with somebody through WhatsApp about your health, asking questions, giving advice, whatever it may be. Even on social media, there's tons and tons of groups for, let's say, breast cancer patients. I think in Europe alone, there's over 6,000 breast cancer patient groups on Facebook, which is interesting because people are looking for answers. People are looking for other patients to know how they are dealing with their disease. Social media, TikTok, for example, 40% of people, they go online and adapt their way of being, their way of dealing with a chronic condition based on the information that they are sharing and talking about on TikTok. And they are not satisfied with one opinion from a doctor. They go to another doctor. If they're not satisfied, they might even go to a third doctor, basically because people want to have more control over their health decisions. They're looking for information. They're reaching out to people as much as possible to have that control. So I was talking about this health enthusiasm trend, the fact that people want to be healthy and happy, and that we have more and more impact on our own health. And that is driven by a technological evolution, which empowers us, which makes us want to become who we want to become. It's also psychological evolutions, because our basic and social needs are largely fulfilled. We can actually try to focus on our aspirations, becoming the best version of ourselves, which then comes with a lot of businesses who want to play into that. Every business becomes a health business. They try to bring something to their customers that helps them in their health. And we basically started the Copernican Health Revolution. We want to take those decisions. All of these things, all of these evolutions contributed to what I call the health enthusiasm trend. One of the most important things out there, if you want to think about your future strategy, the enthusiasm that we all have to become healthy and happy. That is the positive thing. Now, health and happiness may be the most important thing, but if you look at our world, and I think you might agree with this, is that it's easy to say that our world is in some sort of crisis, right? You wouldn't be surprised if I tell you that. We have a climate crisis, we have resource crises, we have a biodiversity crisis, but we also have an economic crisis, definitely now. We have a social crisis, and we have more and more geopolitical conflicts. On top of that, there's even public health crises, mental health crises, and food crises in some part of the world. So what we see is a ton of crises. And so all of these things really impact our planet, ourselves, and our society. And this is very important to realize, because when I was talking about the fact that, health is the most important thing to all of us, well, what you can see is that the planet has an impact on our health, and the way that society is structured has an impact on our health. And so more and more, what people are looking for is to do good. They want to do good for themselves, they want to do good for the planet, they want to do good for society. This is what we see more and more. And so when I'm talking to businesses like yours, I think the one quote that I came up with at some point, it's not exceptionally, but I do like it, is that for your business to do well, it really should do good. Because this is, I think, one of the most important things that is necessary today, definitely in this multi-crisis world that we are living. And very often when I talk about how can you do good, we always think about, the value chain that we have in front of us, and we think about doing good for our, the next chain in the value chain, our customer, and how can we do good for them. But more and more, I work with companies, and even with an R&D or a manufacturer, they are looking how can they do good for example, a physician or a hospital, or for example, for patients in the end. They are helping maybe the supplier or distributor to bring those informations and solutions sometimes to their customers. So it's really not just about the next customer, it's about how can we bring value to the whole value chain and do good for anybody who's involved in that value chain. More and more my exercises, my workshops that I do with customers are in that regard. And just to showcase a little bit that difference between doing good for your direct customer or the whole chain, is this example is an example that maybe is more to the end consumer that you do for your end customer. This is a Cowboy, which is an electric bike, and what they built for their drivers, if you buy this Cowboy bike, what you could do is you have this app that allows you to see where is the air most polluted. And so within their app, they will guide you not through the most polluted air, but they will guide you around it, making sure that you have the healthiest route possible to arrive at your destination. Now, looking at Ford, for example, and I really like this example. This is an example where you don't do it immediately for Ford does not deliver to the end customer here. Ford might deliver to a fleet manager. Ford might deliver to a distribution company. And what they are doing is this is a hybrid car. And as soon as they are arriving close to a school, it will go from normal emissions to electric emissions, making sure that the children that are in that school are not, have the least possible polluted air. So this is an example of where you see that Ford is not just thinking about their next customer, but about the whole value chain and definitely also the end customer. So it's really about doing good for the planet, myself, and society. And I often say we need to think about how can we transform the planet, myself, and society, because that is what the customers are looking for. They know that we are in a crisis. They know that there is more empowerment out there. They have more technology. They have more power on brands and any type of company. So they're looking for themselves to transform planet, theirself, and society. And so if you want to really bring value to your customers, any type of customer, your direct customer or the end customer, it's really about bringing those transformations. And that is what the transformation economy is about. The transformation economy is a new economic reality in which customer transformations creates the most meaningful value. This is the statement that I make when I talk about the transformation economy. Now, to really explain what that really means, maybe it's good to first look at what does it mean, meaningful value. So if you think about value creation in your industry, you should be thinking about how can I create meaningful value. Now, there's two words in that, meaningful and value. And so let's have a look at the first word, meaningful. Now, there was a study in Havas in 2023, but they do it every year. I need to update it. The majority of people say that brands globally need to be doing good for society and planet. That is that is key for brands. But it's also important to improve the health and well-being. Those are the three elements. And again, it goes back to doing good for myself, the planet, and society very clearly. I think the Seema Patel, she was talking about the me economy. Companies need to focus much more on addressing the customer's deepest needs, the deeper needs, which is not the obvious needs, the solution that you bring. So that is meaningful. If you can do that, then you are meaningful. But how do you create value? Now, I'll bring a little bit of theory here of value creation, and it goes as follows. This is how you create value. If you have commodities, from commodities you can create products. I'll give an example. If you want to bake a cake, you need flour, you need milk, you need some eggs, and each of these things costs very little. And if you buy them separately, you can bake a cake for about, I don't know, €1, €2, whatsoever. If you now go to the supermarket, many of those commodities, many of those ingredients are already packed in sachets and sacks. And so you could buy those for a little bit more than €3-4. So they created value, they created a product from these commodities. That is how you create value. If you go to a bakery, the cake is already baked for you. That is the service. And that's why you pay 12 to 13 euros. That is how you create value. If I have to explain it through maybe I think one of the most interesting and innovative industries when it comes to creating value, then I love to look at the travel industry, because travel used to be a commodity. It used to be about leaving your house, right? It then turned into a product when you actually could, rent a space. It turned in the 60s into a service where you have this, all-in service type of vacations like Club Med, where you paid a little bit more, but you were free. You could drink and eat all day. Everything was already included. In the 90s, they moved into the experiences. People in the 90s, they were not just satisfied with an all-in service. They want to experience something. They wanted to go horseback riding in, Poland, or they want to do some visiting in Reykjavik and go into the hot pools there. Maybe they want to do some whiskey tasting in Ireland. It was all about experiences. And that's how we came to the experience economy. That's how value was created in the travel industry. But we could even go one step further. What we see today since about 10 years is that in the travel industry, we go more and more towards transformations. This is an example from Mexico, and it's the most extreme example. But if you go there, you get a health coach who can help you with your daily routines, your meditation, what your food needs to be, your nutrition. It could help you with certain visits that can help you even transform yourself. Travel has become not just about going away like it was a commodity. Traveling is about returning and feeling transformed. And that is also, why we see that about 20% of the tourism expenditures, 20% goes to wellness trips. People want to feel transformed when they return. So they might go to the Kilimanjaro and climb the Kilimanjaro just to feel transformed and when they return. There used to be like maybe 1,000 people that go climb onto the Kilimanjaro every year. Today, there's over 60,000 people every year. And it's not just on foot, they even do it by bike now, just to feel transformed. Some people go to Thailand to clean up beaches, because even that, if they do something good for the planet again, they will feel transformed if they come back. So the whole travel industry has moved into this transformation focus. It's about transforming myself. It's about transforming society. It's about transforming the planet. And this is how you create value. You go from commodities to products, from products to services, from services to experiences, and from experiences to transformations. That is the core of the transformation economy. People want to transform, and this creates value. And I love to give this example because this is, I think, the best example, very recognizable to showcase how it creates monetary value even. Because if you want to work out, you can buy a halter for, let's say, 20 euros at Decathlon or something. And with that halter, it will never break. Clearly, it will never break, but you can work out your entire life. You're ready to pay 20 euros and for your entire life, you can work out with these halters. Now, if you go to a gym, they bought all of these tools for you. The halters and even a lot more. So that is a service. So you are not just willing to pay 20 euros for your entire life, you're willing to pay 20 euros per month. So a service creates more value. People are more willing to pay for this service. Since about 15, 20 years, what we see is experiences. The spinning classes came about in 2005, I think. And a spinning class is not just a service, it's an experience. You sit on a bike together with some other people, there's some loud music playing, a disco ball, disco lightning, you high-five your people next to you, you dance around your bike, somebody's yelling at you. People want to have these experiences. And in that case, they're not willing to pay 20 euros per month, but 20 euros per session. And this is how the value was created until now. The experience economy. This is how value was created. But again, we can go one step further and move into these transformations, which we've been seeing since the past 7-8 years. Personal coaches are everywhere. And the reason why personal coaches are so good is because it's not just an enjoyable experience, it's a transformation. They will listen to what is important to you. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to gain stability? Do you want to age well? Whatever it may be, they will help you specifically to do so. And it will not just be an enjoyable experience, it will make you feel healthy and happy. That is the real transformation that we're having out there. And this is how, again, value is created. Going from the products to the services to the experiences to the transformations. And the transformation economy is all about that. It is about how can you transform your customers? How can you bring those experiences that make them feel better, healthier, or happier? This is what customer transformations is about. This is the soul of the transformation economy. Now, I'd like to end this talk with a very clear guideline on how you can do that. Because it's good to talk about these transformations, but how do you really do that? Well, you need 3 ingredients to serve customer transformations. And I'll showcase it with the question that we all ask every day ourselves, and that is, what will we eat tonight? And so if you want to eat, first of all, you have a certain need. And that need may be a product. We need a certain product, or maybe we need different products, or maybe we need some inspiration. This is the first thing that you need if you want to build a customer transformation. But needs only will give you products and services. So if you answer the market needs, you will create a product or a service, which is not necessarily the most value for your customer, but it's maybe also not as differentiating against your competitors. If you go one step further, you need to add a second ingredient, and that is you need to take into account the expectations of people. How do people expect to experience what you offer them? I mean, you might think of your customers as being important, or you might think as being important to your customers, but you're only a small part of their day. During their day, they do a lot of other things, and they will have a lot of expectations built on their experience with Netflix and Siri and ChatGPT, what have you. All of these experiences in other parts of their lives create expectations. And with these expectations, they will transpose that into your business as well. Like, for example, if we're talking about what will we eat tonight, well, people might expect some, personalization, because in many industries, it is about personalization. Maybe they might expect convenience, like it is brought to their homes. Maybe they might even expect ultra convenience when it is automatically brought with robots and what have you all. So if you can have those needs and you mix it with the expectations, then you can create a customer experience. If I talk to companies are always focused on their customer needs, but they sometimes forget what their expectations are. And these expectations may have nothing to do with your product directly. It may have been built by the expectations and the experience that they have in other parts of their world.
Hold down a sec. Yeah.
And the third part that you need to really create those customer transformations are the aspirations. We talked about it very briefly earlier when I was explaining the healthusiasm trends. But the idea behind it is that you need to understand, what do they desire in life? I showed you this slide before. People want that companies and brands do good for society and planet, or for their health and well-being. Well, you need to include that in your offering. So you need to take into account the needs, the expectations, but also what is important in their life. What are their aspirations? And if you have those three things, this is the magic formula to build customer transformations and the utmost value for your clients. And again, going back to what do we eat tonight? Kroger in the States, they have dietitians in their supermarkets to making sure that people are more aware of what they're buying. Like, one of the aspirations is knowing what you need to buy. To comprehend what food does to your body. Another one is a great one from the Netherlands. In Jumbo, they have slow cash registers where a lot of people, old people, they go to the supermarket just to be able to talk to people. And so they created this line specifically for old people so that old people can have meaningful connections. For some people, having meaningful connections is super important. That is an aspiration in their life. And that way they answer that aspiration. Or in HelloFresh, it gives you no stress. You don't need to think about it. Provides all the calmness. Or if you're a sporter, you don't need to think about what are the proteins that I get from what type of foods. They will give you a basket specifically with high protein if you ask for it. So they also feed into those aspirations. To me, and this is one of the most important short sentences that I'd love to give to you, is that aspirations are the new needs today. It's not just about the basic needs, because all your competitors are doing exactly that as well. You need to take into account these aspirations as well, because as was said before, we need to focus on these deeper needs, and aspirations are these deeper needs. This is the magic formula. If you want to go into that transformation economy, if you want to create the most value possible for your customer, think about needs, think about their expectations, which are built from experiences in other parts of their lives, and think about what is important in their life. Because if you can do that, you get to that transformation economy, to those transformations. To summarizing everything, even if you just missed 5 to 10 minutes because you were talking to a colleague, or you had to pick up a phone, or you were just already longing for your lunch, if I have to wrap it up in just 1 or 2 minutes, here are the most important slides. If you want to create value in your business in the medical device distribution industry, you need to realize that because of the technological evolution, people are more empowered than ever. They have new aspirations, and we notice that every business is turning into a health business where people more and more talk about their health. This has driven an healthusiasm trend, which to me is one of the most important trends out there. The fact that people want to have an impact on their own health. There's a lot of healthusiasm out there, and I'm pretty sure you can all resonate with that at many levels. But at the same time, we're living in a world that is largely in crisis. And I showed you a lot of crises out there, which today are very dominant in our phones. If you open social media, you might immediately see either one of those in your feed. This is the reality that we face today. And so more and more what we see is that people want to do something for the planet, themselves, or society, because all of these crises impact our health and happiness. It's the single most important thing that we have in our life. And so people really want to do good. They're looking for brands that have an impact on society and the planet, and they're looking for brands and companies that have an impact on their health and well-being. And so for businesses to really do well today, you should also be doing good, because that is what people are looking for. And it's not just about the next customer in the value chain, it's about all the customers and your role in that value chain itself. This is what you could do, because you could do good for your planet, you could do good for the people, your customers, and you can do good for society. And because this is what people are looking for. They're looking for those transformations themselves. This is the core of the transformation economy, where people are looking more and more for those transformations as being the most meaningful value for them. So if you can actually create a customer transformation, if you can create an experience that makes people feel better, healthier, or happier, you will go and have the utmost value in your industry. This is the most important thing you need to remember. And for that to achieve, you not only need to take into account the market needs, you also need to understand what your customers have as expectations based on perhaps things that they have experienced outside of your industry, but that they would love to see also in dealing with your business. And then finally, you also need to take into account their aspirations. What is really important in their life? What is the essence? Now, if you want to do that yourself, I can help you, because this is a general keynote, of course. I have workshops specifically where I can guide you through this transformation and make sure that you find the right aspirations in line with your DNA for your direct customer or even the end customers. I can help you with strategies, optimizing. I have a ton of proprietary models for that, or I can even help you build a coalition, an ecosystem of yourself to make sure that all the innovation strategies and even customer strategies are implemented faster, cheaper, and in the best possible way for your customer. That is in a nutshell what I wanted to explain and talk about today. If you have any questions, or if you want to reach out, if you want to have the slides, don't mind to scan the QR code here, which will allow you to immediately send me a mail, and then I can send you the slides or answer your questions if needed. 40 minutes exactly, Timmy. I think that was the purpose, which leaves us with a bit of time for some potential questions if necessary.
Thank you so much, Christoph. I think that was an amazing webinar. Thank you so much. Great perspectives. I would like to leave it open first to you guys. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to unmute or raise your hand or type in the chat even. I'll be excited to hear your perspectives and comments.
Thank you, Christoph. This is Kai from the UK.
Hi, Kai.
Hiya. That was really interesting. Thank you. Do you think then that model is really interesting, going from the commodities all the way up to transformation? The $1 million question: what's coming next after transformation? Or do you think this methodology is more or less complete, and now it's a case of companies or individuals moving up to that top right section of transformation? I was wondering what your thoughts on there, because it looks like every decade we've been able to add a new piece onto this puzzle, at least in the past few decades.
It's been on my mind for quite a while, and I think one of the things that will heavily impact that is AI, obviously. I think transformations in the beginning of AI will remain important, will probably have more and more importance, because technology again will allow us to have bigger impact and to be able to do more transformations. I think if you look at the future in the next, hard to predict in numbers, but let's say 10 years to be safe, what you could expect is that there will be a lot of automation and a lot of things that will be taken away from us. And I think one of the, and I haven't found the word yet, maybe it's humanization, that we will need to, as the ultimate form. But I think it's about what is the ugly, and I call it, I say this word purposefully, what is the ugly human side of ourselves. And why do I say ugly is because what AI will do is most probably the perfect non-authentic solution to everything. And so I think when we want to create value, I think the real value will be in how can we create this serendipity type of ugliness that we have. And why do I say ugliness? I'll explain a little bit more in two ways. Empathy. Well, there's multiple ways. 5-6 years ago, we said that AI would never be as creative as humans. The first industry that was attacked by AI was the creativity industry. Right now, there's a lot of people that say empathy is, the way that we will, diversify ourselves as human from the robots and the AI. I don't think that's true. I think that AI will be at least as good as humans and mimicking AI and mimicking empathy, and it will never be tired. It will never make a mistake, and so it will feel even more or better than what humans can do. However, I think that is not what we need as a human being. I think that the ugliness, and that's why I use the ugliness of being tired or not being 100% empathy, the energy that we have between humans can more difficultly, maybe even never, replicated by AI. So if I would have to say what is the step behind the transformation, it would be like humanization or something. And not humanization in the way that we mimic humans, because that is easy, and robots and AI will be far better in, again, emotions and empathy than we are. But the ugliness, I mean, a good way to explain it is social media was brought to the market as a social connection. Connect with your peers, right? Or your friends. But although we have a lot of connections on social media, we don't feel connected anymore. So you see the difference between connections and feeling connected. I think we have exactly the same thing with AI, where AI will bring a lot of empathy, but we won't be feeling it in the same way. And so this human part of it is something which we as humans, to be healthy, we will need to have that ugliness, as I like to call this pure human, not perfect, authentic. So if my guess at this point would be that, but I'm still chewing on it, and it's still digesting in my head.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, interesting to know your thoughts there. Yeah, so that raw connection, keeping it real.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? They might go even off script, or a bit away from the talk, as Kai just did. Challenge me.
One question I do have for you, Christoph, is you said you worked or still work with several companies and help them implement this customer transformation. I think it's super cool what you mentioned. Have you seen different levels of success in the ways you've helped them, depending on their sort of approach or their ambitions, if that makes sense?
Well, I think
like, what's a sort of approach or mindset have you seen to be most successful from these companies that you help, that they have taken the advice that you gave them? And
well, I think
like long-term.
Well, the first remark that I need to give is that after I do the workshops or even strategic advice, I often leave the company. So I might be in contact with some of the others, but there's also a lot of people leaving companies as well themselves. So I may not have a very good view on what the eventual result is for them. What I do feel really hard when I do the exercises or when I presented certain outcomes to the board is that there's a difference between the ones that mean it and integrate it heavily and the ones that do it for window dressing. That's where I see a lot of the intention is almost the same. They start from, we know this is where this is going, but you have the ones that just add like a small layer on top of it, but don't want to do too much effort or don't ingrain it in who they are and the culture and so forth. And then you have the ones that really do. And to me, it makes more sense to match it with your DNA, ingrain it in your culture, and speak the truth, let's say. And I think to me that is the biggest difference that I see. Of course, afterwards, what is done with it. I've given presentations and workshops with leadership teams that were giving standing ovations, and when I had a call 2 years later, they didn't do anything. So this is a reality of business sometimes as well. If shit hits the fan, as they say, you first need to focus maybe on something else. So it's hard to give a clear answer on that.
Yeah. And in terms of helping them integrated into their culture, like you said, that was one of my main notes as well. Like that would probably be the key thing in their long-term success. Is that something you usually help them with, or it's mainly it depends on them on how they can express it to their team and believe in the sort of mission as well?
Yeah, I think it has to do with what the company wants to invest in or not. But I can also help in creating that culture. There's a couple of ways I can do that in. Is that what I always try to do is I try to transform it into a language that people can easily talk about. So that you can either use it in your day-to-day conversations with your boss or your colleagues, or even put it into your objectives. I was very much inspired by UCB, which is one of my clients, which I'm very often work with. I think the new CEO came in 2015, I think, and he did one thing really, really well, and he said everyone in the company from A to Z. So whether you are facing the physician or whether you are an assistant or whether you are in a manufacturing, you need to have in your objectives what your contribution is to the patient value. So everything within UCB is about patient value. And so everyone has an objective of what is so even assistant or the assistant of the assistants, they have all in their objectives, how do I contribute to patient value? And I think everybody uses the same language, everybody has the same objectives, and it makes you think about the end goal. That is basically what every pharmaceutical company should do, is change the lives of patients. And I really like that example. And so I try to apply the same thing with this healthhusiasm and then the life aspirations. Actually, there's 24 life aspirations that I have, which are universal. Categorized. I didn't want to go too much into detail here because it would have been too heavy, but and I think this was already pretty heavy. But there's 24 life aspirations in 4 categories. And I think the first exercise that everyone could do is think about what are the aspirations that we can have an effect on, that are in line with our DNA and our offerings today. And if you can do that, then you can easily, you'll find 2, 3, 4 maybe, and then you can translate that into everything that you do, because these are like the golden standards of the culture you want to have towards your customers.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
That was a great answer. Guys, if you have any more questions, we have 5 to 10 minutes, about 5 probably. I know everyone's probably excited for lunch, but let's try to get at least one more question. If you don't feel like speaking, feel free to type it in the chat as well. That's no problem.
It's only 11 o'clock here, so lunch is far away from me.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have
early lunch?
Yeah, early lunch. Yeah, I can do that. Do you have a sense, Christoph, of what the most difficult transition is from the commodities to product to service? Is it easier to go from a company that harnesses raw iron ore and making something made of iron? That seems, to my mind, simpler than going from a service to an experience. Or I don't know. Do you have any feelings on what's the most difficult transition? Because us everybody on this call is linked to medical distribution, so we're kind of in the product, perhaps service to some extent realm. So if we want to be following this model, we need to be going to the experience and the transformation, which would need some creative thought to get from a medical distributor to the transformation area, but it's a good thought exercise.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say for me, to be honest. If I would have to give an answer, I think indeed it's from service to experience, because like a product and a service, most of the time what we see is that it still centers around the same need. So you add a little thing on top of it, maybe to turn it into a service, and try to differentiate from your competitor. I think if you go into an experience, it's a digital transformation very often, because you add digital layers to it to change the experience, and that is already that requires different skills than you had previously. Now, if you go to a customer transformation, the difference there is that a digital transformation often is very much inward looking. So you need to add skills to do an internal transformation, digitally, of your processes, maybe on the way that you communicate, what so forth. But a customer transformation now really thinks about who is that client. It goes a bit further than what is his immediate need. So I think those two are the most difficult ones in my regard. Yeah, but it's most of the time it's driven by, how can I differentiate myself in the market? The more price pressure you feel because the differentiation between you and competitors is hardly there, the more you are incentivized to go into this experience or into that transformation. Now, I was happily surprised, because it is feasible in every industry. I was happily surprised. The reason why I'm here is because I gave a talk to VTS in Belgium. Maybe you might know them. They're part of this group as well, I think. And during that event, there was this company, I forgot the name of the company, and they were selling the shelves, the racks that you store in your magazine, in your do you call it magazines? No, the big hallways where you put all the products in. So this is a pure product, right? And they came to me, it's like, everything you say is exactly what we've been doing for the past year. We've moved away from products, and we're really thinking in terms of transformations. We did not maybe mention it, I've named it a transformation, but everything that we want to achieve was exactly that. So even if we just sell the shelves that you use to stock your products, they were thinking about, how can we go into these transformations. And it was an exercise they've been doing for a year, and it was a difficult exercise, they told me, but they were so happy to see this confirmed in my talk. So it is possible, but it requires a different type of thinking than just thinking about the needs.
Yeah, I suppose it also requires good knowledge of what your customer wants within the industry, and what as you said, their expectations from outside our industry is as well. So yeah.
Anyway, and I think if you think at experiences, that has a lot to do with touch points. In that touch point, they want a certain experience, but a transformation has to do with what is important in their life. So that changes the direction of your customer conversations as well. It's not just about how do you like that website, or how you like this order that you put in. No, it's really about, how do you want to have less stress? Do you want to have this? Do you want to? It's really those elements bring a whole different type of conversation with your client.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christoph. I think we might be able to wrap it up if nobody has any more questions. Seems like everyone is hungry, maybe. But perfect, Christoph. Thank you so much. I will send out the presentation. If you can send it to me, I'll send it out to everyone as well. And then your contact as well, to get in touch with you to get a deeper sense of what you do to help these companies. And thank you for the talk. It was amazing.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Thank you for this opportunity, and feel free to reach out. Anybody, if it's just for a chat, I'm totally open for a 15-minute exchange of thoughts whatsoever.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.